Greetings all, Ferrariman601 here. Welcome to the 2017 Italian Grand Prix Live Commentary stream. We are very late coming to the party here. We've had some technical issues to sort out. However, the formation lap is just getting finished here. The front runners, Lewis Hamilton, Lance Stroll, and Esteban Ocon, your top three, are coming to the grid to take their positions. They are followed by Valtteri Bottas, Kimi Raikkonen, Sebastian Vettel, Felipe Massa, Daniel Kvyat, Kevin Magnussen, and Sergio Perez, your top 10. We have had a very interesting qualifying yesterday, which was punctuated by pretty much a stoppage for about 2 hours due to heavy rain at Monza. However, Lewis Hamilton took his 69th career pole position yesterday. That makes him the most successful qualifier of all time. He finally eclipsed Michael Schumacher's pole position record of 68. The safety car and a Lamborghini course car have taken to the grid. The lights are coming up. 3 are on. 4, 5, pause. And we are underway here at Monza. Lewis Hamilton appears to get a good start, as does Lance Stroll, who challenges Hamilton immediately off the line. Esteban Ocon now on the outside coming into turn 1. Lewis Hamilton has a very clear advantage as they turn right for the first time. Checking through the field to see if there is any contact in the back markers. There is a little bit of contact between Felipe Massa and Sergio Perez. Somebody lost a bit of a wing. Not entirely sure who that was, as the field makes their way into the second chicane. The order is Hamilton, Ocon, and Stroll, your top three, followed by Raikkonen, Bottas, and Vettel. Massa, Verstappen, Perez, and Magnussen round out the top 10. What will be interesting to see here is whether or not the Force India has any straight line challenge for the Mercedes of Lewis Hamilton. The Mercedes obviously powering both of those cars. We will see if there is any parity between engine specifications here. As the field rounds out Sector 2, Lewis Hamilton goes purple in Sector 2 at a 29.6. That time is followed by Esteban Ocon in P2 with a 30.395. Through Ascari for the first time. The order is unchanged at the front, and it still appears that everybody is running. No major contact here on the first lap of running in the Italian Grand Prix. Bottas and Raikkonen going side by side through Parabolica. This could end in tears, however, both of these drivers are very experienced and very good. Bottas takes that position from Kimi Raikkonen. Bottas moves in the braking zone to fend off Raikkonen's charge. He consolidates that fourth place. Jolyon Palmer gets it very wrong going into the first chicane. A cloud of tire smoke punctuates his error as he also knocks down one of those foam signboards warning the drivers, hey, you can't go this way. Race Control has noted that Palmer missed the first chicane. On board with Bottas as he challenges Lance Stroll into Ascari. He thinks better of it. Romain Grosjean complaining that his front wing is dead. I didn't know front wings could die. Apparently it has happened to the Frenchman. We'll watch him. Race Control has enabled DRS at the end of lap 2. Bottas challenging Stroll. That Mercedes is immensely quick in a straight line. Bottas gets in front of Stroll into the braking zone, and he consolidates that position. Meanwhile, Massa fighting with one of the Red Bulls. That is Max Verstappen. Massa holds off Verstappen for the moment through the first chicane. Max Verstappen with a puncture on the right front. He must have made contact with Felipe Massa there. Another race, another disaster for Max Verstappen. What happens? We see in replay now Verstappen turning into the first chicane. Massa is to his right. Verstappen is forced to take evasive action over the curbing, and that is what does the damage to the right front of Max Verstappen. Through Curva Grande, the tire starts to deflate, and then it entirely delaminates. The tread surface comes undone from the sidewall, all at about 185 miles an hour. That's not too scary. Meanwhile, Kimi Räikkönen has ceded his 5th place to Sebastian Vettel. The Ferraris now run in P5 and 6, Vettel-Räikkönen. Lewis Hamilton sets fastest lap at a 1:26.217, fastest of all in sectors 2 and 3. Bottas fastest in sector 1. Turn 1 incident involving Verstappen and Massa under investigation. Verstappen recovers to the pits. They change tires and front wing, and apparently he will be okay. The turn 1 incident involving Verstappen and Stroll. It is not Massa, it is Lance Stroll. That is under investigation by race control. A long-distance replay of the start. Just checking to see. At the back of the field, they were running 3 wide through the first chicane. There's not enough room to do that here. Valtteri Bottas, meanwhile, sets fastest lap at a 1:26.205. Hamilton running in the 26.288 range. Ricardo, Grosjean, and Wehrlein were running 3 wide through the first chicane. Absolutely crazy. And I actually was correct. The turn 1 incident involving Verstappen and Massa is under investigation. Apparently I am a better observer than the FIA. On board with Esteban Ocon off the start. He got a good launch. He definitely got a better launch than Lance Stroll. Into the first chicane, he outbrakes Stroll slightly, and the position was his. Ocon has since lost his 3rd place to Valtteri Bottas. It is a Mercedes 1-2 at this time. The gap between Hamilton and Bottas is 3.6 seconds. Yes, Vettel has made his way up into 4th. Lance Stroll now between the 2 Ferraris in P5. Vettel should be good for a podium because the Ferrari and the Force India should be no match for each other. The Ferrari should be vastly superior. However, we will see what transpires. The gap between Ocon and Vettel is just 0.4 of a second. We are expecting a move to occur very shortly. Vettel is in the DRS zone coming down to Ascari. However, that DRS advantage is not good enough for Sebastian Vettel to do anything about Ocon on this lap. Yes, as far as the live streams go, I am planning to do all of the remaining races this year. I'm hoping that can happen. There are some restrictions that I've got in terms of time of day and whatnot, but hopefully I'll be able to do that. And one of the Ferraris, it is Kimi Räikkönen, has missed the first chicane I can see in the side-by-side view on television. I didn't see any obvious signs of lockup from Kimi Räikkönen. I hope the brakes are okay. As far as doing a complete season in F1 2017, I've been thinking about it. I'm just not entirely sure how interesting it would really be, because let's say I did it in career mode, I would probably run in the Haas, and I wouldn't be challenging for any sort of wins for that first season, so you'd have a whole bunch of videos of me fighting for 15th place, and I don't know how exciting that would be. Deadpool, hi there. GT Player, hello. Kimi Räikkönen wondering in radio if he has any damage to the rear of his car. Does that explain why he missed the chicane? Possibly. Ferrari reply saying that they see nothing in the data. Meanwhile, Vettel appears to have passed Esteban Ocon. He has. He is now in third place. The top three order: Hamilton, Bottas, Vettel. They are followed by Ocon, Stroll, Raikkonen, Massa, Perez, Ricciardo, and Magnussen, your top 10. Poor old Max Verstappen running in P20 and last, recovering from that puncture and wing change. The two Mercedes cars have pulled out in front of Sebastian Vettel to the tune of 6.5 seconds. Valtteri Bottas, meanwhile, resets fastest lap now at a 1:25.287. The McLarens are running in 13th and 15th, Van Dorn and Alonso. It's been a little bit difficult to determine how quick these cars are here relative to the 2016 cars, because yesterday in qualifying, where we would have seen the ultimate speed, it was raining, and we won't really see the ultimate speed of these cars today because they are obviously running on full tanks right now, and they'll be managing their fuel throughout the entire race. So the ultimate pace is something that is still a little bit of a mystery here at Monza. I don't see any smoke anywhere around the circuit, so VTEC certainly has not yet kicked in. Hamilton replies to Bottas with his own fastest lap, 1:25.262. Nico Hülkenberg, meanwhile, is in the pit lane. We're not getting any TV coverage of this. Are we seeing an early pit stop from the Renault team? Hülkenberg switches to the yellow sidewall tires here. That's a normal pit stop. he is good to go to the end per the regulations. Turn 1 incident between Verstappen and Massa, no further action from race control. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton continuing to scamper off into the distance here. He leads Valtteri Bottas by 2.8 seconds. Fight between Williams and Force India for P4 is still alive and well. Nico Hülkenberg saying that he's not happy with the balance, and then he leaves his radio on, and Renault tell him that his radio is still on, and Hülkenberg doesn't understand that his radio is still on, and yes, hilarity ensues. Already working lap 11 of 53 here. The pace of this race is always absolutely furious, this being the fastest track on the calendar, of course. Speed traps are a little bit slow for the moment, just nudging 200 miles an hour. Of course, the cars are still quite heavy at this stage. Yes, Mercedes have absolutely come back from break stronger than anyone else. You have to wonder just how much work they were doing over break. There is a 2-week shutdown period that is mandated by the regulations, but what have they had in the pipeline before then? You've really got to wonder, because they are truly in a class of their own lately. Deadpool, that is absolutely terrifying. I hope you're okay. I just have to ask, why was there a bottle of alcohol immediately next to a fireplace? I've done my fair share of silly things with fire as well. However, I've never had something that bad happen. I have had my my hands burned by molten plastic before. That didn't tickle. I've still got some permanent scars from it. This happened many years ago. However, yeah, that's bad. Meanwhile, at the front, Hamilton continues to lead Bottas to the tune of 3.1 seconds now. One must wonder if team orders are ensuing. The fight for P4 is well and truly on. Ocon, Stroll, and Raikkonen running nose to tail here on track. Who will be victorious in this little scrap? Something tells me Raikkonen should be able to dispose of both of these guys relatively easily, but we've already seen him miss the first chicane once today. We'll see what the Iceman is able to accomplish. Meanwhile, in replay, Alonso and Palmer once again getting at it. Radio from Alonso. Palmer missed the second chicane and in so doing overtook Fernando Alonso. Yeah, Alonso is none too happy with that. Palmer has not ceded that position to the McLaren. Kimi not at all happy with the rear of that Ferrari. He's continuing to complain about an entire lack of rear grip. He is trying his best to dispose of Lance Stroll. However, it does not appear that he's got anything for the Williams at this point. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton sets another fastest lap, 125.223. Fernando Alonso complaining about the upshifts in the Maconda. Do we have a technical issue brewing for the VTEC machine? Apparently so. Another lap record, Lewis Hamilton, 124.928. He's currently the only car running in the 24s. Kimi Raikkonen takes to the pit lane. This will be a strategy change for Raikkonen, considering that he has been mired behind Stroll and Ocon. Raikkonen now running on the yellow sidewall soft tires. And Raikkonen rejoins here in P11. Meanwhile, Van Dorn and Kvyat scrapping it out for 9th place. Van Dorn's McLaren is doing a whole lot better currently than Alonso's. McLaren telling Alonso to go to default 0-3. They must be having all sorts of failures on that car already. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen has overtaken Romain Grosjean for P19. Verstappen no longer running last. Yeah, any sort of burns that you get from a fluid that's on fire, that's about the worst thing you can get, because the problem that you get is that it's the liquid itself that's burning, and liquid obviously can splash and stick to things, and that's bad. That's really, really bad. GT player, the answer to your question is neither. I play it on PC. Jolyon Palmer is officially under investigation for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. He still has yet to cede that position to Fernando Alonso. At this point, it is too late. He will get a penalty if the stewards deem it to be a foul of the sporting regulations, which I certainly believe it is. Meanwhile, in replay, the two Saubers coming together at the first chicane. Fairline hit Ericsson. In the pits now, Lance Stroll for Williams. Somewhat of a slow stop, it appears. However, Stroll now coming out on those soft tires. 5-second time penalty for Jolyon Palmer, leaving the track and gaining an advantage. That is the word from race control. Fernando Alonso still won't be very pleased with that, as Palmer has not actually given Alonso the position back. The gap at front between Hamilton and Bottas has now grown to 4.09. I'll say it again in terms of a potential engine formula for the future. Gas turbines with fans, as in big fans that suck air from underneath the car to create a lot of ground effect downforce. That's what I would want. In replay, Lewis Hamilton through the second chicane. Whoa, getting very out of shape on the exit there. A bit of a tank slapper. However, he holds on to it, and it makes for some really cool looking slow-mo replay. Just gets his left side wheel slightly into the gravel. He throws up every rock in the universe. Nobody will be happy with him behind. Well, Mercedes are currently using some ridiculous fuel mixture of diesel and oil. So I honestly don't see what you're left wanting for, Teixeira. Yes, Kimi Räikkönen supermodel wife. What else is new? Fernando Alonso, I told you he wouldn't be amused with that 5-second penalty for Palmer, and he's not. He says it's a joke, and I tend to agree. Palmer should have to give the position back, and then there should be no further penalty. Deadpool, I'm surprised you're able to type right now. And it burns to your hands. Yeah, I've done that. It's not fun. Ocon is absolutely all over the back of Stoffel Van Dorn for P7, and he's alongside through Curva Grande. We're going to see if he's able to consolidate that position. It shouldn't be too much of a fight. And Kimi Räikkönen also easily disposing now of Stoffel Van Dorn. Van Dorn has yet to stop. Stroll, the next car that needs to dispose of Van Dorn. Felipe Massa in and out of the pits onto the yellow sidewalled soft tires. Massa good to go to the end here on lap 22 of 53. We're already approaching the halfway point in this race. The gap at the front has grown to 4.7 seconds. Valtteri Bottas to Mercedes. They're asking him how the tires are. He says, no problem, all stable. Mercedes could probably do this race without making a pit stop, to be honest. Looking at the straight line speed comparisons between Ocon and Räikkönen, Räikkönen is consistently slower than Ocon in a straight line. That's somewhat surprising, even with DRS. Yes, Räikkönen faster with DRS, but he's unable to make any ground on that Force India. Leaders in the speed trap right now are the two Red Bulls, topping out at over 350 clicks. I agree, we won't see another team win the championship under the current regulations. The problem that Formula One has always had, though, is that it's so slow to react to really dire needs of the sport. 2014, they introduced these new hybrid engines in the guise of being environmentally friendly and road relevant, and, well, they're neither, quite honestly. And obviously Mercedes got that combination right from the word go. At this point, we're into the third year of this engine spec, the first year of this new car spec, but it really has not shaken up the running order. Mercedes still at the top, and then either Red Bull or Ferrari or Force India are the ones to challenge them on any given day. So we need a change. Problem is, the earliest that we can look to get a change is 2021, which is way too long. I understand that there are all sorts of agreements that the teams sign with the governing body and all of that stuff, but clearly you've still got the same problems that we have had for decades. Cars can't follow closely nose to tail, and one team ends up running away with everything. Ross Brawn in the last couple of days has given us some encouraging words. He is very much against DRS and he wants it gone. Problem is, the earliest that we could expect it gone might be 2020 or 2021. That's too far away. I mean, we can go back to 2005 if we want, when they started to talk about the idea of banning traction control and getting rid of slick tires. Well, it took until 2008 for them to ban traction control, and then it took until 2009 for them to give us slick tires. However, also by 2009, they chopped the cars up so badly that they were slower anyway. So when change does come to Formula One, it takes a long time, and usually there's some other baggage tied to it that we didn't want at all. Raikkonen is on Ocon. He is trying his best into the first chicane to leapfrog the Frenchman. It appears he has done so, finally, with that DRS assistance. Perhaps Ferrari have convinced him that the car is actually okay. Raikkonen moves up to P6. His next target will be Perez. However, Perez is 7 seconds up the road. I mean, for me, the aerodynamic answer to the following problem is ground effect. If you can use ground effect, the airflow is already conditioned from the car in front. It makes it even better for a car following close behind. So, given the safety standards that we've got today, given the technology that we've come up with in the 40 or so years since ground effect was really a thing, I think it could be easily done now, and safety standards could be maintained, if not even improved somewhat, because you'd have less appendages on the front of the car, less appendages on the top of the car, fewer things to fall off of the car. So if you're also worried about debris and stuff, ground effect really is the way to go. Well, you might get part of your wish next year. There are big-time speculations going on that Sauber is going to be rebranded as Alfa Romeo next year. Nothing's confirmed. However, that has been floated around in the last couple of days. Yes, at the halfway point in this race, Hamilton leads Bottas by 5 seconds. Blue flags now for Max Verstappen. That's not what he wanted to see. On board with Stroll in P8, doing a little bit of lift and coast to recharge that battery. However, he is currently behind Esteban Ocon. Undoubtedly, he's thinking about doing something with that position. I've got to say, Lance Stroll, I made a comment on this much earlier in the season from his onboards. His steering wheel movement was very excessive, we should say, through a lot of the high-speed corners in the beginning part of the season. However, he has calmed that down significantly. Meanwhile, Max Verstappen into the Red Bull pits, going from super softs to super softs. Remember, Verstappen already made a pit stop early on to change tires and front wing, so he's been good to go to the regulations. Verstappen's pit stop in replay. Any dramas here? Nope. That was a very good stop by the Red Bull guys. A little bit of a front wing adjustment as well for Max Verstappen. Meanwhile, the two Mercedes are so far ahead of the field to the tune of 18.5 seconds that we're not even seeing them on television. Their sponsors must be so happy. Kevin Magnussen in P12 already getting the blue flag treatment. We're just past half distance and P12 already being lapped. The next victim to go a lap down will be Fernando Alonso. He will not be happy. Deadpool, you've got to change the .json files for those two cars in Assetto Corsa. I forget exactly how to do it. I did it quite a while ago, but there will be some line of code that says opponents or something of the other, and you've got to change a 1 to a 0 or a 0 to a 1 to make it say yes instead of no, and then that'll remove the opponent's filter on it. There is more information online if you look for it, but you've got to change the .json files for both of those cars to remove that opponent's filter. Meanwhile, Jolyon Palmer is in the pits. He's in the garage. He's taken the steering wheel off and he is getting out of the car. Apparent retirement for Jolyon Palmer. Fernando Alonso is in the pit lane. Vettel is in the pit lane as well. Alonso has changed onto the super soft compound. We are waiting for the leaders to pit. Hamilton and Bottas still yet to make their first and presumably only pit stop. Lewis Hamilton is in the pits. Bottas inherits the race lead. And finally, we've got TV coverage of this Hamilton stop. Off of the super softs, on to the softs. Good to go to the regulations. Really, really fast stop by those Mercedes guys. 2.1 seconds. 2.5 seconds, rather. Still really fast. That is pretty remarkable to think of. When we see a pit stop longer than 3 seconds, we think it's slow. I couldn't imagine doing something like that. I mean, I work on cars all the time, and I think every time that I take a wheel off or put it back on that these F1 teams are able to do that 4 times in 2 seconds. Absolute insanity. Perez into the pits, stopping from P5. Problems on the rear for that pit stop. Still 4.1 seconds for the stop. That's too slow. Crazy. Bottas now in the pits. He'll be mirroring Hamilton's strategy for super softs to softs. Another great stop by Mercedes. 2.2 seconds. Hamilton retakes the lead from his teammate. Bottas on track will resume behind Max Verstappen. However, blue flags for Verstappen and Alonso shall be administered. I'm actually quite surprised to see Fernando Alonso and Stoffel Vandoorne still running. Verstappen very easily takes Fernando Alonso into the braking zone for the second chicane. Alonso didn't even try to fight him. It's an absolutely useless endeavor. Meanwhile, Vandoorne here running down the back straight. He looks like he's running a bit slowly. Vandoorne has some sort of problem. Radio. No power, says Vandoorne. He's recovering to the pits. I spoke just barely too soon. I was surprised to see both the Mikondas running, and one of the Mikondas has left us. Vandoorne into the pits here from P12. McLaren actually do a pit stop here. However, Vandoorne does not leave his pit box, and this looks like a retirement. Contact in turn 1 between Verstappen and Grosjean. Verstappen may actually have some damage from that. Grosjean certainly has some damage from that, some front wing damage. Grosjean on the radio saying Verstappen turned into him. I beg to differ, Roman. You had the inside there. Verstappen was clearly ahead and you did not yield. That's your fault. So, with one Mick Honda out of the race, the other one is running in P15 and going backwards in a hurry. Grosjean shall be leapfrogging Alonso in a few minutes' time. Grosjean has taken to the pit lane. Probably see a front wing change here. I don't know because we have more interminable commercials here on U.S. terrestrial television. Grosjean rejoins onto the super soft tires now. Meanwhile, Valtteri Bottas has reset fastest lap at a 124.234. The Mercedes cars are the only ones in the 124s. They are lapping a good second a lap faster than anyone else. And Hamilton now answers his teammate with fast lap 124.034. We're going to see 123s today, for sure. Turn 1 incident between Verstappen and Grosjean, no investigation necessary. That's insult to injury for Romain Grosjean. The two Mercedes cars effectively running the same lap times here. Bottas fastest in Sector 1, Hamilton fastest in Sector 2. We'll see what happens at the end of this lap. Hamilton breaks into the 123s. It's a 123.975 for Lewis Hamilton. His teammate comes back with a 124.327. So Hamilton is a lot faster at this point. Hammer time. Ricardo is in the pits. My opinion, the best overtake in F1 history. Spa 2000 between Häkkinen, Schumacher, and Ricardo Zonta there in the middle playing a mobile chicane. Mika Häkkinen took Michael Schumacher there at the top of the circuit between Radillon and Lecombe. It was an absolutely diabolical maneuver. Schumacher had been blocking Häkkinen on the couple of laps prior. However, Häkkinen waited for an opportune moment with a back marker to get Michael confused and shoot one up the inside. It was an absolutely amazing move. Both of the Mercedes now back in the 124s. They're just trying to see what kind of ultimate pace they've got. There's no point for them to really push themselves at this point because after Bottas we have 22.5 seconds back to Sebastian Vettel. Both of the Mercedes cars could make pit stops at this point and not lose position. We are 1 hour into this race, and we are currently working lap 40 of 53. We have only got ourselves 13 more laps to go. Yes, Ricciardo does have a reasonable shot at P4, trying to fight Kimi Räikkönen for it. Ricciardo is good to go to the end on his tires. Raikkonen's tires are 24 laps old. Another fastest lap for Lewis Hamilton now, 123.924. Mercedes are literally just playing with their engine settings at this point. They're trying to see how fast they really could be if they wanted to be fast. Meanwhile, Kimi Räikkönen and Daniel Ricciardo, we finally catch up with it on the world feed. Ricciardo going for Räikkönen into the first chicane. That was from a long way back. However, Ricciardo makes the move stick. He had no run on Räikkönen whatsoever. He did it all into the braking zone. Ricciardo easily takes Kimi Räikkönen for 4th place. Daniel Ricciardo potentially on for a podium here today. He has 11.5 seconds to Sebastian Vettel, and with 11 laps left, perhaps he can just barely catch up with him. We'll see. But in replay here, that move between Ricciardo and Räikkönen, Ricciardo just came from absolutely nowhere and was able to make that move stick. That is not good news if you're Ferrari. Yeah, Deadpool, be well. Hope you get better soon. That's not something fun to deal with. Yes, as they run right now, Lewis Hamilton would take the championship lead with 238 points versus Sebastian Vettel, who would be P2 with 235. So it would be really close for that Drivers' Championship, but Hamilton would leapfrog Vettel in the driver's standings. Hamilton's last lap time, a 1:24.678. Bottas is 4/10 a lap faster at this point. Haven't seen any notifications that there are any problems for either of the Mercedes cars. Ricciardo fastest lap, 1:23.915. The gap has come down to 9.4 seconds between himself and Sebastian Vettel for P3. There is a fight for the final podium place. On board with Lewis Hamilton, the car sounds healthy. Last lap time, a 1:24.213. Ricciardo sets fastest lap again, 1:23.748. The gap to himself and Vettel is 8.2 seconds. My verdict on F1 2017 is this. It's not a sim. However, if you don't look at it as if you're trying to look at a sim, it's actually a very fun game. It's realistic enough, but if you're really looking for a very authentic driving experience, look elsewhere. But in terms of making you believe that you're actually in the Formula One circus, the atmosphere, everything else that goes on in the other parts of the game, it's cool. It really is cool. The visuals are good enough. The modeling of the different cars is good enough, and I do really like the classic content, as you've probably noticed. So it's fun. It is truly fun, but if you're looking for an authentic sim experience, it's not. It's quite far from it. Max Verstappen in the tow of Kevin Magnussen into the first chicane. Magnussen goes to the inside to be defensive. Verstappen, however, outbrakes Magnussen, and that is P10 for Max Verstappen, back into the points after an absolutely disastrous first part of this race. Magnussen misses the second chicane. You could argue that perhaps he was squeezed by Verstappen. However, there was no contact between those two cars. In Magnussen's view, he was pushed off by Verstappen. However, there was no contact between those guys. As far as Automobilista, I've never really looked at it too hard. Yes, I've watched other people's videos with it, but it's built on the R-Factor 1 engine, so in terms of anything new for me, I don't really think it's got anything to offer that I've never seen before. I was really big into the Gran Turismo games in the late 90s, and then I continued to play them all the way up until Gran Turismo 5, but that's when I really got into the PC sims, and they were just so much better than anything Gran Turismo had. And don't get me wrong, Gran Turismo is the best driving game on console, but it's still on console, so you still have all of those limitations that comes therewith. To me, if you want to get a good sim experience, it has to be PC. There's nothing else that can offer that right now. Gran Turismo, it is a great game. It's a great series. I have always loved it, but it just doesn't offer me the sort of content or the sort of physics that I really want anymore. Back in the day, before we had real high-fidelity PC sims, it was the best thing out there, but things have just moved on. And Polyphony have their market with Gran Turismo, and they're obviously catering to the console guys on PS4, and that's fine. They can continue to do that. It's not any sort of demerit to them. It's just that it's a different sort of thing in a different sort of market. Five laps to go here in the Italian Grand Prix. Driver of the Day voting is going to close at the end of the race. Who should we try to give it to today? Verstappen and Magnussen are officially under investigation. If any penalties are applied, they will be time penalties. We are too close to the end of the race for any sort of stop-go measures. Meanwhile, fastest lap once again for Lewis Hamilton, a 1:23.542. That is a half a second quicker than Valtteri Bottas. The gap between Ricciardo and Vettel for P3 is now down to 4.8 seconds. The gap has pretty much stopped shrinking at this point. I do agree, Daniel Ricciardo deserves that driver of the day. He's gotten my vote. Ricciardo, fastest lap, 123.361. So it's not just the Mercedes that can run fast. Problem is, they were running fast when it mattered. Working lap 50 of 53. No further action on that incident between Magnussen and Verstappen. I agree with that. That was just hard racing from Verstappen, but totally entitled to do that. He was on the line, he didn't move. I do believe Bottas led one lap on that pit stop rotation. But that was it. Pole, fastest lap, and victory, if Lewis Hamilton wants it. Currently, Daniel Ricciardo has fastest lap. However, Hamilton has got another 2 laps with which he could potentially reset fastest lap. Does he want it? Does he care? Does he even know he doesn't have fastest lap anymore? I don't know. That gap between Vettel and Ricciardo has stabilized around 4.2 seconds. It is not changing anymore. With 2 laps to go, it's not going to happen, unfortunately. Vettel looks to be consolidated in P3. Fernando Alonso being told to back off because VTEC has kicked in on lap 52 of 53. McLaren telling Alonso that they need to retire. Why would you bother running the race if you're going to drop out on the last lap? Fernando Alonso in the pit box, he switches it off. That is yet another retirement for Fernando Alonso and the McHonda. This is just 100% ridiculous. It has been ridiculous since 2015, but this is absolutely laughable. Fernando Alonso, I don't think anybody could blame him for doing anything other than driving for McLaren next year. I mean, if Fernando Alonso wanted to sell magazines on a street corner, it would still be a better gig than this McLaren Honda deal. Just unbelievable, the damage to his dignity that this has done. We saw what kind of a driver he is this year at Indianapolis. He did a great job. Honda there let him down as well. So many things could have gone so much differently in Fernando Alonso's career, yet here he is. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton coming out of the Lesmo complex, moving down toward the Ascari chicane for the last time. The gap between himself and Valtteri Bottas is 4.8 seconds. It has been so for the majority of this race. Currently, Hamilton does not have fast lap, and I don't think he's going to try to set it on the last lap here. Hamilton now coming down the back straight toward Parabolica for the last time. His teammate just coming into shot behind him. Easy on the brakes now through Parabolica. Along this 180-degree right-hander, ever expanding on the exit, now to the line. The checkered flag is up. Lewis Hamilton wins the Italian Grand Prix. He is followed home in second place by his teammate Valtteri Bottas. Another dominant 1-2 finish by the Mercedes team. Sebastian Vettel will consolidate P3 to round out the podium. Daniel Ricciardo, try as he might, unable to take P3. Meanwhile, in the backfield, Felipe Massa and Lance Stroll fighting it out for P7. Stroll holding off Massa into the second chicane. This is dicey. The two Williams cars are racing, and Sergio Perez is trying to get in on the action. Massa about to fall into the clutches of Perez. This could all come to tears. They're approaching Ascari now. Will Perez make a move on Massa? Massa and Perez both have DRS due to their proximity to Lance Stroll. Will anybody try a move into Ascari? Perez thinks about it, and then he thinks again about it. The trio have exited the Ascari chicane. Now coming down the back straight, Felipe Massa in the tow of Lance Stroll, and Perez in turn in the tow of Felipe Massa. I don't think there's enough time left for anybody to try anything. Indeed there is not. Coming down now to the line, Stroll, Massa, and Perez for positions 7, 8, and 9. Lance Stroll gets P7, Massa P8, and Perez P9. Your final point scorer today, Max Verstappen in P10 for the Red Bull. A decent recovery after an absolutely disastrous first part of this Italian Grand Prix. This means that Lewis Hamilton now leads the Drivers' Championship with 238 points over Sebastian Vettel's 235. Valtteri Bottas maintains his third position in the Drivers' Championship with 197 points. Daniel Ricciardo in P4 with 144. The last driver with over 100 points on the board in P5 is Kimi Raikkonen with 138, and then there's a really big gap down to P6 for Max Verstappen with 68 points on the board. Quick translation there on Vettel's Italian team radio. Thank you, everybody. It's a difficult day, but there are so many tifosi here. Thank you to all of them. Lewis Hamilton in Parc Fermé getting out of the car. Undoubtedly he will be pleased with his day's work. How about that? Barely an hour and 20 minutes after the formation lap, the race is already over. Monza is always so quick. I'll get you need to conjugate the verb there. 44 and 77, to suck. You need to put it in the imperative mode. And just looking at the stats for a second, that is victory number 59 for Lewis Hamilton. That's pretty crazy. When was the last time we saw a driver win 59 races? Mercedes is so fast because they've got the engine right. They've absolutely gotten the engine right. 2014, those new engine regulations came in and they just dominated immediately. Mercedes have a lot of experience building turbocharged engines in their heavy vehicles and heavy equipment that they manufacture, and just all of that experience came in. They've also got extensive experience with hybrid technology with their road car division, and all of that know-how has come good in Formula One. And the perimeter gates have been opened, and the start-finish straight here at Monza has been absolutely inundated with fans. This is always an absolutely crazy scene every year, and there it is. The fans have unfurled two absolutely enormous banners on the start-finish straight. We have a Ferrari Scudetto shield, and then we have the big Ferrari heart unfurled there on the start-finish straight. Absolutely massive. Two Mercedes drivers not exchanging too many words here in the prep room. I have no idea where Sebastian Vettel is. I see his helmet. I don't see Vettel. There's Vettel. He's intentionally staying out of the camera shot for some reason. It's always interesting to watch the crowd here during these podium celebrations because they bring a lot of flags, yes, a lot of national flags here, but sometimes they have funny things written on them, so I've got my eye peeled for that. Sebastian Vettel mounts the podium for P3 here at Monza. The Tifosi go absolutely nuts, as you might expect. Out comes Valtteri Bottas. And here is Lewis Hamilton. Stand by for the anthems. Quite a few people have cracked some of those smoke generators there down on the start-finish straight. The entire camera shot is now bathed in red. The crowd go absolutely nuts for Sebastian Vettel. Of course, to be expected, I'm sure, however, they wish that the story were a little bit different. And the race organizers have gone absolutely all out here. There is an absolute avalanche of confetti flying all over the circuit. Some of it has managed to wrap its way around Sebastian Vettel's face. Yes. That is going to be a mess to clean up. And unless my eyes deceive me, did somebody from the ground, yes, somebody from the ground threw their cell phone up onto the podium to Lewis Hamilton, who is currently taking a picture with it. Will he drop it now back down? Unless that is Lewis Hamilton's phone. I saw him catch it out of the air. Anyway, Martin Brundle now with the podium interviews. Jean Alesi also joining him. Lewis Hamilton saying Mercedes power is better than Ferrari power. You can't say that on the podium at Monza, Lewis. Even if it might be true today, you just can't say it. Somebody give Hamilton armed escort out of the circuit tonight, please. And now Jean Alesi with the P3 interview with Sebastian Vettel. The crowd love Ferrari and the crowd love Jean Alesi, that is for sure. Sebastian Vettel in Italian saying, "Thank you everybody in the Tifosi, you are the greatest fans in all the world." He continues to say, "Yes, today's been difficult, but I know that we will get there." Yes, Sim Racing 604 is 3 times better than me. And now we get to see some Vettel cam from the podium. Well, cool scenes from the podium nonetheless, despite the result that we've had today. Mercedes 1 and 2, Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. P3 for Ferrari Sebastian Vettel, and P4 for Daniel Ricciardo, P5 for Kimi Raikkonen. In 6th, we have Esteban Ocon for Force India. In 7th is Lance Stroll for Williams. He's followed home in P8 by Felipe Massa, also for Williams. 9th for Sergio Perez, and our final point scorer in 10th for Max Verstappen. P11 for Kevin Magnussen, 12th Daniel Kvyat, 13th for Nico Hülkenberg, 14th for Carlos Sainz, 15th for Romain Grosjean, 16th for Pascal Wehrlein, and after that we get into our retirements. Classified in 17th is Fernando Alonso. He retired on lap 51 of 53. P18 for Marcus Ericsson. Not classified are Stoffel Van Dorn and Julian Palmer. I agree. If Lewis Hamilton ever had designs on a Ferrari drive, they are all gone. He went to Monza and said that Mercedes power is better. That is the death knell. Yes, the MP44 is coming. There will be at least one video made in all of the classic cars in F1 2017. Yeah, I wanted to have a look at it no matter what. I did the same thing with 2015 and 2016. I couldn't get 2015 to work right on my machine for whatever reason. I just couldn't get any frame rate out of it, so I gave that one back and got a refund. But this one's running very nicely, and obviously it's making nice videos, so I'm going to continue at least giving us a look at the classic cars, and then from there I'm not entirely sure what. I don't know if I'll do at least one race in every car on the grid, or what. I don't know if I'm going to do a career series or not. Like I said before, I think most of it would be quite boring, but definitely we're going to have a look at the remaining classic cars that I haven't featured yet, and from there we'll see what happens. Obviously, Assetto Corsa videos will continue. Yeah, McLaren career mode's not going to happen. Somebody else is already doing it, somebody who managed to get hundreds of thousands of views with every video. I don't know how that's possible, but it happens. Not that I'm bitter about that. But if a career mode does happen, it's going to be with Haas. It won't be with anybody else. Yeah, that was one thing that was good about F1 2013. You could race the classic cars against the current ones, but I guess licensing restrictions and all that, they didn't want the F2004 destroying the 2017 cars. Better driver. Who is it? Verstappen or Ricciardo? Right now, Ricciardo's the better driver because he has more experience. And he's a bit older, he's a bit more mature, but I think when it comes to all-out pace and all-out craziness, I think over the measure of his career, we're going to see Verstappen better than Ricciardo. Honestly, I think we're going to see Max Verstappen be a world champion someday. Remember, he is still incredibly young. He could very easily spend the next 15, if not 20 years in Formula One if all goes well, so I think we're bound to see Verstappen being a world champion. I don't see that for Ricciardo. That's a juicy question. If I were running McLaren right now, well, the first thing I would have done would be at the end of 2015, I would have told Honda to leave. It does not involve a noose and a chair. I would have told Honda to leave at the end of 2015, and if we couldn't secure an engine deal for 2016, we would sit out the championship if need be, because there is absolutely no point in going racing if you're not even going to finish half of the races you start, let alone be in the fight for points or wins. So Honda would have been gone at the end of 2015, and then I'd have scrambled to put a supply deal together with anybody else other than Honda. I wouldn't care if we had to bite the bullet and somehow become a Ferrari customer team, because there is absolutely no way that McLaren should ever be running this badly. Ideally, I would never have let Mercedes leave, because clearly that was the best combination McLaren ever had in terms of engine supply. But we would not have Honda right now. If it's 2017 and you thrust me into that position, we get rid of Honda at the end of this year and we sign this deal with Renault that apparently is on the table, because anything is better than that Honda. Also, what I would do if I'm running McLaren, we stop making road cars for the time being. We throw all of our resources back into the race team, because that is what McLaren is, first and foremost. It is a Formula One team. Their road car division, I think it has been too much of a distraction for the company. They make really cool road cars, but road cars don't win races, and ultimately road cars don't make you all that much money. That TV money in Formula One is huge, and if you can be higher up the order, you've got greater exposure for your sponsors, and therefore you get more money. So that would be my focus. The other thing I would do if I were running McLaren would be to get Ron Dennis back, because Ron Dennis effectively single-handedly responsible for the majority of McLaren World Championships. He was responsible for signing Senna, Prost, Hakkinen, Hamilton. He was responsible for all of those guys. So, well, Ron Dennis deserves to be back in McLaren, and I would make the deal really, really sweet for him. It would be something he absolutely couldn't refuse. And yes, that new livery on the Ferrari for this weekend, 70th anniversary, yeah, went over like a fart in a spacesuit, as they say. Surely Ron Dennis is not immune to making mistakes, but when you look at his track record, sure, signing the Honda deal was pretty ridiculous, but I do agree here. I don't think anybody knew that Honda could be that bad, especially when Honda were saying that they didn't go into 2014 because they wanted more development time. So you look at that, you think, oh, they're really paying attention to what's going on this year. They're going to be really good in 2015. But no. The McLaren-Honda partnership here, it is impressively bad. I agree. However, that is going to do it for us today in our live stream of the Italian Grand Prix. Thank you all very, very much for joining us, and of course we're going to have more content coming your way right here from F1 2017 as well as Assetto Corsa. Until next time, though, thank you all very much for joining me this morning, and we will see you soon.